Hello, friends. Let's see how this goes, shall we? Okay. I'm a little bit thrown, to be honest. I haven't done this for a very long time. I'm a little bit out of practice. So let's see. And of course, I generally don't have the webcam running, but that's fine. We'll just ignore that. We'll pretend that's not happening. So, we're working on Book 2, Chapter 3 of War of the Worlds. That will be part 20 on YouTube. I'm a little worried about this stream, how it's going to go, because our connection in Japan is nowhere near as good as the connection we had in Australia. But here's hoping. Here's hoping. So we need the thumbnail for first up. Wow, YouTube chapter 20. There we go. We'll put that back where it's supposed to be. I'm also a little bit slowy with this software because I'm not super experienced on it yet. We have upgraded to Adobe Premiere Pro. Fancy. Mostly because the Camtasia was just infuriating. It crashed all the time and it was terrible, so we decided to knock it on the head, jump in the deep end, and pay for the monthly subscription for Adobe. Also, it was messing with the audio quality of Jet's music, her compositions, and man, she puts a lot of effort in to make those for us. So the least we could do, you know, is get the audio quality right. And of course, I'm getting the hiccups because we've just started editing. Okay, so chapter 20 is not particularly long. There we go. Have we done the normalization? I think we have. Okay, here we go. Woo! Anyone here yet? Yes, hello, hello. First viewer. I can see your chat if you want to say hello. I've got a little screen over here. I'm not sure how the quality is going to go. Does it look all right? Is it smooth? Is it jerky as all get out? How's the audio? All that sort of stuff. Let me know. It's basic. Our internet connection here in Japan is basically a phone, which they have disguised as your Wi-Fi pot, but it's just a mobile hotspot, Wi-Fi hotspot. That's essentially what we've got here. So I don't know if this is going to be good or not. And if it's not, we probably just won't do it for the first 10 months that we're here, because it's not really worth upgrading the internet connection in this apartment if we're only going to be here for 10 months, particularly because Japan is hardcore about like minimum length of like leases and all that sort of stuff, and it tends to be counted in years. So we'd be paying from River Tatatui. I know projects take a long time, and I'm also not sure how this works, but do you take book requests, or how do the future books get chosen? I certainly take suggestions, not so much requests. Most people who want a book done ask for something that's a little too new. I only do books that are in the public domain because that bypasses a lot of legal difficulties. But yeah, if you want a book done, then you can just put it in a comment or something like that, and it goes on a list. 9 times out of 10, as I said, it's legally impossible for me to make that audiobook, but when it's not, I add it to the list, and if a bunch of people ask for it, then I make it. I'm not a complete bastard. I do pay attention to the requests of my audience. All right, let's see how this first edit is going. If you could, by the way, let me know if this video is completely atrocious or not. That would be great, because I can't really tell.
Book 2, Chapter 3, The Days of Imprisonment. The arrival of a second fighting machine.
Okay, not bad, not bad. We could use a little volume bump there. That's okay. Make sure we're not going
Book
red line.
2,
Yeah, that's redlining a bit.
Chapter 3, The Days of Imprisonment.
And that broke off there a bit, so we're going to have to pump that up. Blip.
The Days of Imprisonment.
And you're quite right, of course, about the length of production time. It takes a long time, long time.
Days of Imprisonment.
That said, we do have this book, War of the Worlds, is still in production, of course, but the next two have actually already been done. They're ready to go, which is great. That's the first time that's ever happened in the history of the channel.
The arrival of a second fighting.
All right, move that out a bit.
The arrival of a second fighting machine drove us from our peephole into the scullery, for we feared that from his elevation the Martian might see down upon us behind our barrier.
Okay, that's fine and dandy, but a lot of this first chapter is going to be just discussion, so there's going to be music there. Here we go, SFX. Hello, wait for the second hard drive to wake up. There we are. Weather, we have the long howling wind. The wind howling outside. All the children of the night. What music they make. I'm going to do Dracula at some time soon, by the way. Oh yes. Oh yes. Dracula needs to be done. And I wasn't doing it initially because one of the other audiobook folks on YouTube had done it. It was one of his big books. And I didn't want to step on his toes. But then he started stepping on mine, so I'm just going to do it. I want to do it anyway.
The Days of Imprisonment. The arrival of a second.
Let's raise you up. And then we're going to bring you down. This is very exciting, by the way. Editing. Ooh, it's a thrill a minute. Strap in. It's going to go nuts.
Of Imprisonment. The arrival of a second fighting machine drove us from our peephole into the scullery, for we feared that from his elevation the Martian might see down upon us behind our barrier. At a later date we began to feel less in danger of their eyes, for to an eye in the dazzle of the sunlight outside, our refuge must have been blank blackness. But at first, the slightest suggestion of approach drove us into the scullery in heart-throbbing retreat. Yet, terrible as was the danger we incurred, the attraction of peeping was, for both of us, irresistible. And I recall now with a sort of wonder that, in spite of the...
Okay, I don't think this... Oh, damn, I saved it the wrong file. Oh, well, doesn't matter. Desktop audio working while working a bit to C3. Wow, B2C3 working. Save us that. And the copy. There we go. Then we're going to load up a very, very old copy of Sound Booth, which does some brutal editing, which I like. I like it. it is hardcore, man. It's hardcore. Here we go. Wow, working B2, C3, copy, Alice, because my lovely wife edited this for me, did the master edit. Here we go. Here, look at that. Look at that. Look at how wildly different those peaks and valleys, troughs, everything, that level is completely unacceptable. So this old program has a brutally effective normalization effect, which I'm sure could be done on other programs, but I just like how this one does it. Boom! Look how much more even that is. So much better, right? There we go. Easy peasy. Why? 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 Anyway, does not matter because we have that new file there anyway. Yeah, sure. Okay, no, get rid of that. Alright, so open the W. And what we're going to do is move that into there. Because it's opening. Oh, stupid Camtasia, of course. That's why. That's why. Okay. So there we go. You can go in there, and then you. Ha ha ha. Yes, look how tricky I am. There you go. And then it becomes the new normalized file, right? Then I'll probably have to make a couple of little changes. From River Tattoo again, it's buffering a bit every now and again, but it's very possible on my side. Thanks for the explanation above. No worries. Yeah, I was a bit concerned. It's not exactly going to be high speed. It would probably be a bit better, actually, if I did not actually stream it over here. But I don't know. I sort of need to stream it so that I can see your chats, so I can actually respond to you. All right, let's check the volume levels here.
Book 2, Chapter 3, The Days of Imprisonment.
Okay, so that's all a little bit higher now, isn't it? So we're going to drop those down a bit.
Book 2, Chapter 3.
Nice.
The Days of Imprisonment.
I'm sure you probably already know this, but in case you don't, this window here is the main area where I'm doing all the editing work. Over here, just to the right of it, you'll see the volume levels, and if they dip into the red up the top there, that's too much, that's distorting, so we have to pull the volume back a bit.
The arrival of a second fighting machine
That's
drove us
right
from
on the border
into the
there.
scullery, for we feared that from his
That's okay.
elevation the Martian might see down upon us behind our barrier. At a later date we began to feel less in danger of their eyes, for to an eye in the dazzle of the sunlight outside, our refuge must have been blank blackness. But at first, the slightest suggestion of approach drove us into the scullery in heart-throbbing.
Right, so that red is showing that it did very briefly clip.
Retreat. Yet, terrible as was the danger
That's
we
okay,
incurred,
we'll just keep it nice and safe.
The attraction of peeping was, for both of us, irresistible. And I recall now with a sort of wonder that, in spite of the infinite danger in which we were between starvation and a still more terrible death, we could yet struggle bitterly for that horrible privilege of sight. We would race across the kitchen in a grotesque way between eagerness and the dread of making a noise, and strike each other and thrust and kick within a few inches of exposure. The fact is that we had absolutely incompatible dispositions and habits of thought and action, and our danger and isolation only accentuated the incompatibility.
Okay. We don't actually want you yet. We want you nice and quiet.
At Halliford, I had already come to hate.
Here we go. Alright, so we are actually going to fade you
to the curate's trick of helpless exclamation. His stupid rigidity of mind, his endless muttering monologue vitiated every effort I made to think out a line of action and drove me at times, thus pent up and intensified, that we had
I'm not sure I should use the theme song there, actually.
the verge of craziness.
It's one thing to have the theme song just carry on through an early part of a chapter. I did that in Chapter 1 of War of the Worlds, and I thought it sounded quite good. But it might be a bit too much. Too much to do it there. So we are going to have to go through the music that we have here. I'll stick with Jet, partly because she's great, and partly because I want to, you know, just keep it all from her. I do like this piece, but I don't think it fits this.
He was as lacking in restraint as a silly woman. He would weep for hours together, and I verily believe that to the very end this spoiled child
And it's not very
of life
long.
thought his weak tears in some way efficacious. And I would sit in the darkness, unable to keep my mind off him by reason of his importunities. He ate more than I did, and it was in vain that I pointed out that our only chance of life was to stop in the house.
I used this one quite a lot in 1984. I like it. It's quite sort of creepy. So I don't think it fits this. All right. No, definitely not. I love this piece, but not for this one. No. Yes. 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 We'll use this one. Let's pull it in, make sure it fits, but I think we're going to use this one.
Absolutely incompatible disposition in a grotesque way between eagerness and the dread of making a noise, and strike each other and thrust and kick within a few inches of exposure. The fact is that we had absolutely incompatible dispositions and habits of thought and action, and our danger and isolation only accentuated the incompatibility. At Halliford, I had already
Let's bring it back a bit. Oops.
across the kitchen in a grotesque way between eagerness and the dread of making a noise, and strike each other and thrust and kick within a few inches of exposure. The fact is that we had absolutely incompatible dispositions and habits of thought and action, and our danger and isolation only accentuated the incompatibility. At Halliford, I had already come to hate the curate's trick of helpless exclamation. His stupid rigidity of mind, his endless muttering monologue vitiated every effort I made to think out a line of action, and drove me at times, thus pent up and intensified, almost to the verge of craziness. He was as lacking in restraint as a silly woman. He would weep for hours together, and I verily believe that to the very end this spoiled child of life thought his weak tears in some way efficacious. And
That starts getting a bit loud there. Let's drop that down a little bit.
I verily believe that to the very end this spoiled child of life thought his weak tears in some way efficacious. And I would sit in the darkness, unable to keep my mind off him by reason of his importunities. He ate more than I did, and it was in vain that I pointed out that our only chance of life was to stop in the house until the Martians had done with their pit. That in that long patience a time might presently come when we should need food. He ate and drank impulsively, in heavy meals, at long intervals. He slept little. As the days wore on, his utter carelessness of any consideration so intensified our distress and danger that I had, much as I loathed doing it, to resort to threats, and at last to blows. That brought him to reason for a time. But he was one of those weak creatures, void of pride, timorous, anemic, hateful souls, full of shifty cunning, who face neither God nor man, who face not even themselves. It is disagreeable for me to recall and write these things, but I set them down that my story may lack nothing. Those who have escaped the dark and terrible aspects of life will find my brutality, my flash of rage in our final tragedy easy enough to blame, for they know what is wrong as well as any, but not what is possible to tortured men. But those who have been under the shadow, who have gone down at last to elemental things, will have a wider charity. And while, within, we fought out our dark, dim contest of whispers, snatched food and drink, and gripped hands and blows, without, in the pitiless sunlight of that terrible June, was the strange wonder, the unfamiliar routine of the Martians in the pit. Let me return to those first new experiences of mine. After a long time, I ventured back to the peephole to find that the newcomer...
Okay, great. Yep, sure. All right, so I think we're going to swell it as his aggression grows. He gets angrier and angrier at the curate. And then we're going to fade out because I only use music for sort of inner monologues, right? And then when we come back to the real world has to come back. So we'll do that.
We'll have a wider charity. And while within we've timorous, anemic, hateful souls, full of shifty cunning, who face neither God nor man, who face not even themselves. It is disagreeable for me to recall and write these things, but I set them down that my story may lack nothing. Those who have escaped the dark and terrible aspects of life will find my brutality, my flash of rage in our final tragedy easy enough to blame, for they know what is wrong as well as any, but not what is possible to tortured men. But those who have been under the shadow, who have gone down at last to elemental things, will have a wider charity.
Bit too much. Let's stretch that out a bit. Okay.
Brutality, my flat cunning, who face neither God nor man. Call and write these things, but I set them down that my story may lack nothing. Those who have escaped the dark and terrible aspects of life will find my brutality, my flash of rage in our final tragedy easy enough to blame, for they know what is wrong as well as any, but not what is possible to tortured men. But those who have been under the shadow, who have gone down at last to elemental things, will have a wider charity. And while within...
Okay.
In under the shadow, who have gone down at last to elemental things, will have a wider charity. And while...
And that is the wind? Yes, it is. Okay, let's start bringing that back. What level was that at before? Minus 8.1. Minus 6.4. 7.9, that'll do. Close enough.
Men but those who have been
That's a
under
tiny
the
difference,
shadow,
7.9 to
who have gone
8.1.
down at last
Tiny.
to elemental things, will have a wider charity. And while within we fought out our dark, dim contest of whispers, snatched food and drink, and gripped hands and blows, without, in the pitiless sunlight of that terrible June, was the strange wonder, the unfamiliar routine of the Martians in the pit. Let me return to those first new experiences of mine. After a long time, I ventured back to the peephole to find that the newcomers had been reinforced by the occupants of no fewer than 3 of the fighting machines. Those last had brought with them certain fresh appliances that stood in an orderly manner about the cylinder. The second handling machine was now completed and was busied in serving one of the novel contrivances the big machine had brought. This was a body resembling a milk can in its general form, above which oscillated a pear-shaped receptacle, and from which a stream of white powder flowed into a circular basin below. The oscillatory motion was imparted to this by one tentacle of the handling machine. With 2 spatulate hands, the handling machine was digging out and flinging masses of clay into the pear-shaped receptacle above, while with another arm it periodically opened a door and removed rusty and blackened clinkers from the middle part